a piece that could be used by a 8 foot, 9 foot tall human being, or not human being, because we know they're giants.
Some sort of giant hybrid entity,
yes.
right?
Do we really think the large megalithic stones we find in Sacsayhuaman, Peru, are not enigmatic? These gargantuan megaliths are seamlessly put together without the use of mortar, a technique which is called ashlar construction. When the conquistadors asked the Inca about the walls that we see in Sacsayhuaman, the Inca told the Spanish that the giants had built them. What if this is true? What if there's a hidden history like Scotty Walter of American Unearthed suggests? What if a technology that built these structures no longer exists today? Even in modernity, with cranes and diamond saws and huge trucks and ways of moving the stones, it would be a very, very difficult project to construct a wall like we see in Sacsayhuaman. In other words, whoever built Sacsayhuaman, whoever built these structures, took their technology with them when they left. What if the builders of these sites would show advanced engineering, mathematics, construction techniques, and a knowledge of solar alignments, such as the summer and winter solstices, or the vernal and autumnal equinoxes, were not human beings, but part of the fallen angelic host who came here because they wanted to be worshipped as gods. Then there are the elongated skulls. Are they all cradle headboarded or artificially manipulated, as some would have us believe? Or perhaps could these elongated skulls be a remnant of a Nephilim tribe? Journey with us and see for yourself what we discovered in Peru. Come with us and see the evidence of what we believe is a secret cosmic war.
Could there be a singular answer to the mysteries of megalithic structures around the world? Is there a pattern, a construction method, or a clue left by these ancient builders, a thread of evidence that wraps around the world? Could they have been creating a network of power centers that we are only discovering today? Evidence continues to emerge that there once was an ancient civilization that built tremendous structures here. Apparently, many were giants, and most of the bones that were collected over the centuries have been lost to us, whether accidental or intentionally. In fact, we are often prevented from even reading ledgers about their discovery, even though they were routinely reported in many newspaper articles in the 1800s. But if we still could find one more spot, one special location where unspoiled evidence could be examined, then that place had to be found.
We discovered that the only place we could go was Peru. We felt drawn to these mammoth structures of stone and the technologies that were obviously behind their creation and use. But what did it all mean? Tell us why a bronze chisel would not be able to duplicate this.
Well, bronze is a lot softer than this stone. This stone is 6.5 to 7 out of 10 in hardness, with 10 being diamond. Bronze is 3.5 to 4 in hardness. So it would be the equivalent of trying to cut down a tree with a plastic knife. If the tool is softer than the material, it simply can't do anything. And that's what the great mystery is of this wall, as well as Sacsayhuaman, which we will see. It almost looks like the stone was molded into shape, as if the ancient builders were able to soften the stone almost to the consistency of marshmallows, and then push them into place and turn off whatever machine it was they were using, and then just continually move down and up in order to construct it. Because in a lot of cases,
that's unbelievable.
The joinery is so tight that you can't fit a human hair in between. And this wall is 6 feet thick.
And to complicate this, the wall is not vertical, straight up and down, 90 degrees from, let's say, a flat base. The wall is leaning at a slight angle as it goes up for stability.
Right.
So now you've got even more complex angles. And if look at this. I mean, there's nothing square or level about any of this. Every stone is polygonal. Every stone has its own peculiar shape.
Yeah, every single stone is a different shape and size. And what we'll see when we go around the corner is that the builders went one step above that, and they created pictograms of animals in the walls as well, like a jigsaw puzzle.
Amazing.
So that requires planning and design, whereas conventional archaeology simply says that they'd find a stone that was of approximate shape it and put it into place, but they don't take into account the design system which is inherent in this wall and others. Well, the important thing is that they call this pre-Inca, but this is Inca. You know, the stuff before the Inca is better. The stuff after the Inca is worse. So you're going from the finest craftsmanship being the oldest craftsmanship. The worst craftsmanship is the more recent, which is counter to what conventional archaeology or even the so-called history of humanity is. That supposedly we start from being very primitive to the so-called sophisticated nature that we're at now. But any ancient society will tell you that cultures go in waves. They crest, then they crash, then they crest, then they crash. Atlantis being the ultimate example, so-called Atlantis. But the important point is that in this corner, this little corner of 100 square feet, we have the megalithic on the bottom. This stone came from 30 kilometers away. Every stone is super heavy, in some cases multi-tons. Above that, you have Inca repair work. And then above that still, you have where the Spanish recycled an Inca building, and that's on top of the Inca work. And then even higher, you have colonial Spanish. So you have the entire history of Cusco given an example of in this wall from the bottom to the top.
There is indigenous rock which is found here at Sacsayhuaman, and then there is other stone which is andesite. And the question is, where did this andesite, these huge megalithic boulders, originate from? Where were they quarried? Senor Jesus, where did these stones come from? How far away?
Las leyendas incas dicen
According to the Inca legends, they were brought from Yucay and Muina. Yucay is 72 kilometers away, and Muina 45 kilometers away.
This is the indigenous rock of the area, and this is limestone. The stones that build these walls are andesite. So we have a real problem because this andesite stone comes from 40 miles away in one direction, which begs the question, how does an ancient culture, maybe without the wheel, move cyclopean blocks, some of them weighing as much as 125 tons? So not only were these stones hauled 40 miles plus, but they also came from an elevation about 2,000 feet lower than what you see here. It truly is enigmatic. And being a frank supernaturalist, I look to the supernatural. Is it possible that this is the handiwork of fallen angels and the progeny, the Nephilim?
Well, the thing is, I've read, as far as I know, every Spanish chronicle and the only Inca chronicle that exists. And no one can say, even archaeologists can't say who made these. The stone is far too big for human, just physical labor to move them, especially from 40 miles away. And so some of the accounts state that when the Spanish first arrived up here at Sacsayhuaman, they were stupefied. And they asked the Inca, they said, "Did you build this?" And the Inca said, "No. These were made by the giants long before us." And I think we're definitely looking at a mysterious culture of incredible sophistication existing long before history into what is called prehistory. It may have been the Nephilim.
Sure.
That theory is as strong as any other. So that's where we are with this. And it's not only at Sacsayhuaman, you find it also at Machu Picchu, you find it in the city of Cusco, and at all the major megalithic sites and so-called Inca sites in and around Cusco. You find these megalithic stones, precision accuracy in terms of putting them together.
by an unknown race.
Again, we're in the site of Sacsayhuaman, and it's a mystery. We're very high up in the mountains here, and we see this megalithic work, this stonework with fairly, it looked like right angles to me, and the corners are shaped. And it sort of begs the question, why? Why come here to do this?
Nothing Brian could have told us would have prepared us for what we were about to see. But first, we had to visit a church built on ancient stones that were many thousands of years old.
We are in a church, but what predates the church, and this is why we came here, is this incredible foundation work. Tell us about the stones and why these are peculiar.
Well, according to conventional archaeology, this was an Inca palace or temple. But the thing is that this is mortarless construction. So the Inca tools were only bronze chisels and stone hammers. And so since this wall is 5 feet thick, there's no mortar or cement in between the stones. This is very high-tech construction.
Very high-tech, absolutely.
So it's impossible for the Inca to have built this. They would have adopted it and used it. But this is one of the enigmatic buildings that we find here, and also especially around Cusco, that predates the Inca. But since there was supposedly no civilization prior to the Inca, we're looking way back in time as to when this was made.
It's amazing here. The stonework, I have never seen any stonework that even comes close to what we're looking at here now. Notice the joints here, the precision joints, and the complex of angles. These are masters of stonework.
Again, this wall is at least 5 feet thick through that way. There's no hollow in it. Every one of these stones fits together with a precision whereby you can't fit a human hair in between. We could achieve this today, but it would be incredibly expensive and incredibly time-consuming. So how could some so-called primitive civilization in the past have done this? And like what you were saying, is that this is similar to what you see in Egypt. And the Egyptologists insist that everything in Egypt was built by the pharaohs. But what we see here and in Egypt and all over the world is the adoption of older structures.
Other structures that come later on, like we see in Mexico in places like Teotihuacan, are much more recent in my opinion. And they are post-flood, after the flood. But what I find interesting is the building techniques are completely different in these sites. Take another look at Sacsayhuaman and compare it to Teotihuacan. In Sacsayhuaman, we see megalithic stones, some weighing over 120 tons, put together seamlessly with polygonal angles. And each stone that goes on top of the other one fits absolutely perfect. Folks, I've been there. I've run my hands over the face of the stones. I've looked to see a crack in nothing. I mean, the joints are imperceptible. They're there, you can see them, but there's no space between them. They are absolutely perfect. Yet when we go to Mexico, in Teotihuacan, we don't see megalithic work. We see indigenous stones, and yet advanced mathematics, engineering, construction techniques are still employed. And that structure at Teotihuacan is the largest pyramid on the earth. What I mean by that, the base of the pyramid in Teotihuacan is larger than the Great Pyramid in Giza, in Egypt, on the Giza Plateau. Something to think about. The biblical narrative tells us in Genesis 11:3, they used brick instead of stone. With what we have seen in Watcher 6, there may be more in this passage than what meets the eye. What is the Spirit of a living God trying to tell us by saying they used brick instead of stone? Had they lost the ability, perhaps, to work in stone like they did before the flood? In other words, the technology used to create these megalithic places in Peru was, for some reason that is still unknown to us, removed and was no longer used. To sum things up, there is a history that I believe has been kept deliberately under the radar from us. It's been obfuscated. Watchers 10 is coming out soon, as well as my new book entitled Nephilim Hybrids. I want to give you a teaser, and for those of you who have watched PPS Report, it has been right under your nose, and we've used it in our studio. Take a good look at this picture. I found it in the archives at the Catalina Museum. Essentially, this photograph was lost for about 90 years, but I had it analyzed by 3 different people who put the skeleton at just under 9 feet. The man that you see in the picture is Ralph Glidden, who stood 5 foot 8 inches tall. That picture went missing. No one saw it for over 90 years. Richard Shaw, the director of Watchers, and yours truly went back to the Catalina Museum to film there, and what we found was astonishing. The museum had taken the picture I had analyzed and cropped the giant skeleton completely out of it. I wonder why they would do this. What do they have to hide? Could it be because this picture and subsequent giant skeleton points back to the veracity of the biblical prophetic narrative and also to the veracity of the Native American oral tradition? You've seen some of the evidence, and we'll be showing you more of what we found in further episodes of PPSReport.com. Thanks for watching, folks, and remember, I'll see you on the air or in the air.